Yeah, the big one will be later. For now, Iran has been abandoned by war fronts. Let's see what he was saying.
Here's how Iran's
I
defensive
never watched this guy. I don't know what this is about. I don't know his perspective. I want to see what he has to say. He has 1.12 million subscribers. Um, might be a history lesson, might be an army. I don't know. He looks like maybe like an ex-army guy, or at least he works out.
against Israel was supposed to work. All across the Middle East, year after year after year, Iran has sent weapons, funding, advisors, and more to a wide range of non-state actors with one shared enemy. From the Hamas organization in Gaza to Hezbollah in Lebanon to Yemen's Houthi rebels and more, all of Iran's allies were supposed to be so well-armed, so formidable, and so downright unpredictable that if Iran itself were ever attacked, they would leap to the Ayatollah's defense and devastate Iran's mortal enemies. But right
Here's the funny thing. So when the war with like Russia and Ukraine started, right, and then like the shit that was happening with China, and then the stuff that happened with Iran and Israel started, right, and it's like it felt like you like if the U.S. gets involved in all of these like stuff that is happening around the world, the U.S. would be stretched thin, right, and it wouldn't be able to handle this crisis and that crisis and another crisis maybe like pop up later, right? And it would be just stretched in. What happened in reality is because of Russia being still at war with Ukraine, Iran actually has no backing right now. Iran has been abandoned, right? Russia cannot defend its business partner at all on any level, right? Russia is being taxed by the war in Ukraine so much. And like, is Russia winning that war? In my opinion, yeah. That devastating Ukrainian blow that, not devastating, but like the fucking amazing blow that Ukraine did on Russia. Brilliant. Fucking like, was like half a year in the planning. That was a brilliant, very surgical, what do you call the drone strike? Very surgical attack, right? Russia is not having a good time. Its people are not having a good time, whatever. So now Iran is stretched in. If anything, this whole war that like it seemed like it was meant to stretch the U.S. thin with resources towards Russia, it seems like it completely backfired because there's nobody to support Iran right now. And because Hamas attacked without organizing the attack with Hezbollah and really taxing Israel, because like it was supposed to be like a joint effort from 2 to 3 fronts. We don't know if the Houthis were supposed to also be involved. We don't know if Iran was supposed to shoot at the same time as the October 7th happened. Like, well, October 7th was supposed to happen on October 7th, right? Maybe Iran was supposed to shoot at Israel. Hezbollah was supposed to shoot at Israel. Hamas was supposed to infiltrate Israel. Maybe all of these three things were supposed to happen at the same time. And because Hamas did it earlier than expected without notifying anyone, they were caught with their pants down. And the US is not that bothered with the, well, I wouldn't say not bothered, but it's not that taxed about the Ukraine and Russia war. So now Iran, after the Hezbollah got fucking destroyed, Hamas got fucking destroyed, right? Houthis are not having a good time anymore, right? Iran is left with like, well, now we're fucked, and Israel fucked them. So I think this really backfired. This is like, I think the plan was good. I think they just too many mistakes.
Right now, Iran is coming up on a week of continuous fighting with Israel, and Iran is decisively on the losing side. The nation has landed some hits of its own, but its military leadership has been decapitated, its air defenses are non-existent, and its people are at Israel's mercy. And all the while, Iran's friends across the Middle East have done practically nothing.
Well, they can't do anything anymore. Like, they're doing damage to soldiers, yeah, which is sad. I don't think there should be that many soldiers on the ground. Honestly, they're risking soldier lives way too much compared to just like trying to save civilian lives in Gaza. And I know if you're a Dave Sniff fan, you'll be like, oh, they're killing civilians. Bro, this is like, the amount of civilians they killed is fucking negligible, okay? It's like, oh, but they fucking flattened. There's like no more homes, whatever. What the fuck do they need homes for? Let's be real. It's the fucking desert. They're lucky if they have rain. They can live in tents while the reconstruction happens. As long as they have food, they're good. Okay? Yeah, it's not gonna be fucking comfortable, sure, but just because you reduce their infrastructure to fucking zero doesn't mean that they really are going to die. People survived way worse, and they're still living in parts of the world where it's still worse than in Gaza. Not in terms of like the war, in terms of like living conditions after this war will be over, right? So to say it's like, oh, because like how many people are now gonna die and starve because like you reduced their homes and like you destroyed their fucking marketplace, yada yada yada. It's like, bro, the whole world is going to send help to Gaza. For some reason, they're not sending help to Lebanon and to Syria, but they are going to send a shit ton of help and Yemen. But they are going to send a lot of help to Gaza. You know why they're sent to Gaza? Because they know that if it gets to Gaza, Israel will give it to the Gazans. If you send to Syria, Syrian civilians are probably not going to get the food. If you send the support to Yemen, Yemen civilians are probably not going to get the food. Why? Because the world still trusts Israel to do the right thing. And they will. Okay? So, Iran is fucked.
Watching silently as their longtime benefactor has been brought to the brink of collapse. So let's discuss just why Iran's friends have chosen this moment to bail out on their ally, and why Iran's decades-long effort to undermine Israel now appears to have been a waste. Every end.
Now here's the thing. We can't even call it a waste yet. The goal of Israel is to replace the regime in Iran. Yes, true, fine. I think everyone knows this. I think the US goal would also align with replacing the regime. However, you can't force the replacement without the citizens wanting to replace the regime. The good thing about Iran is that about 70% of the civilians do want to. The problem is, are they actually going to take this opportunity to do so? Because again, even if they try, the weapons are still in the regime's control, right? Civilians will still get killed by the regime, even if they try to, orchestrate a coup. And it's not easy to ask the people to do this, right? It's uncertain times. It's like you're getting used to the shit, so it's not that bad anymore. It's like, yeah, it sucks, but it's not horrible. Yada yada yada, right? So, and it's been like 50 years almost since they felt like Western freedom, kind of. Like it's not a familiar feeling for them, probably. So there are so many factors, like just psychological factors to the people of Iran. It's like, are they going to actually do something? Right. I think the revolt needs to happen not only by the civilians, but also within the regime, as in like some people in the regime, especially the ones carrying the fucking weapons, being like, yeah, guys, it's fucking over. I'm siding with the winning side. Yeah, I'm not gonna live as good as I am now. I'm not gonna have my golden toothbrush, but it's better than being dead. Okay, I think that's what needs to happen. It's not just the civilians. I think there needs to be like a coup from within the regime as well. Otherwise, like to supply the civilians with a force, right? Like give the civilians more power.
And for Iran, the cascading series of misfires and missteps that led us to today can be traced back to one of the most pivotal days in modern Middle Eastern history. October the 7th, 2023. That day, of course, is the day of the Hamas organization's massive assault on Israel, slaughtering about 1,200 Israelis, taking over 250 more captive, and kicking off the crisis that's now known as the Israel-Hamas war. Hamas had long been reliant on the direct support of Iran, but just like every other group that we're gonna discuss today, the relationship between Iran and its proxy force in Gaza was complicated. Iran certainly held a powerful sway over Hamas and could direct it to do one thing or another as Iran saw fit, but at the end of the day, Hamas was its own organization with priorities that could come into conflict with those of its main backer. By all accounts, Iran certainly didn't mind the idea of an October 7th style attack against Israel, but the way that the attack went down was far from what Iran would have drawn up. Hamas's rationale for the attack could make an episode all its own, so let us know if you'd like to see that. But for now, suffice it to say that Hamas perceived itself as being under threat from all directions, including from Iran. At that time, Israel was in the process of normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia, including from Iran. Now, suffice it to say that Hamas perceived itself as being under threat from all directions, including from Iran. At that time, Israel was in the process of normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia, as Saudi Arabia was simultaneously normalizing relations with Iran. And in an Arab world where those three nations could start working together, Hamas knew full well.
Oh, okay, that's that. Okay, I thought he for some reason said Hamas instead of Israel. Yeah, that I can see that, but I really don't think that is the case. Because otherwise, why would Iran also help attack Israel? Why would Hezbollah attack Israel the day after? That also doesn't make sense, right? I guess he's talking about just Hamas perspective. Maybe just from the Hamas perspective. I don't know.
That its mandate to exist could be under threat. In a world where Iran and Israel eventually learn to tolerate each other or even collaborate, it would be Hamas left holding the bag after decades of death and destruction. Again, this is the quick version of events, and we can certainly go into greater detail in a future episode. But in retrospect,
this is also I'm pretty sure this is very speculative. I think the logic tracks. But I honestly think that Hamas probably feared for their intelligence being intercepted by Israel, and they acted on that day because they knew that day is the best day to act, because it was it's not a holiday, it's like Remembrance Day or whatever, right? And it was the weekend. It's just the chips fell into place that really well on that day. And I'm still, if somebody tells me with even half proof that it was an inside job, I'll be like, you know what? It could be. But I'm just saying that it was the perfect day to attack, and I don't think Hamas would have had a better day to attack. Right? And the longer this plan is in motion, the more chances this plan has to be intercepted.
Middle Eastern proxy network started when Iran seemingly failed to anticipate.
Also, sorry, I'm gonna rewind a bit. Also, from what we know, and this is also could be why October 7th happened when it happened, Egypt came out and said, we were warning Israel that something is going to happen, even though Bibi denied it. And then Egypt was kind of forced to retract it. That, at least that's what it looks like from the outside perspective. I remember that Egypt said, the president of Egypt, or whatever he is, I think he's the president, came out and said that they informed Israel of something, of some intelligence from Gaza, and Israel just brushed it off. Okay? So, maybe that is the real reason why October 7th even happened on that day, is because Hamas was like, I think we've been intercepted, we gotta act now.
Of events, and we can certainly go into greater detail in a future episode. But in retrospect, the collapse of Iran's Middle Eastern proxy network started when Iran seemingly failed to anticipate that Hamas would attack Israel on its own terms without Iranian support, and had its own reasons for doing so. Before October 7th, Hamas was a critical part of Iran's plans to keep Israel in check. Hamas was thought to have well over 10,000 rockets and mortars at its disposal, plus several tens of thousands of fighters, long-range missiles, and kamikaze drones. Now, Hamas could, of course, use those assets to launch terror attacks, but they also served a dual purpose. If Israel ever considered taking military action against Iran directly, like Israel is currently doing, then it would have to plan for a major attack coming from Gaza at its rear. Even more dangerous was the Hezbollah organization based in southern Lebanon, who were estimated in 2024 to have anywhere from 50,000 to 200,000 fighters, up to 150,000 rockets, missiles, and drones, and other military hardware that led it to being widely regarded as the most dangerous non-state actor on the planet. Also on Israel's border, the regime of Bashar Bashar al-Assad in Syria had grown increasingly close to Iran, allowing Iran to freely traffic weapons and fighters into Lebanon and quite possibly contributing its own military assets in the event of regional war. But one by one...
It's such a fucking complex area, man. Holy fuck. There's so many moving parts, which is like makes it really interesting in terms of like war strategy, but there's so many moving parts, and it's like also the names are confusing as shit, right? The names can be confusing as shit, so that could also be a problem. Yeah, man. Fuck. It's like if you think something, it's like there's so many like aspects of it. Well, again, like I said, like so many moving parts. Like good luck figuring out the whole plan, any plan, and if anything, this makes me admire intelligence units even more. It's like like, or not even, sorry, not even just intelligence and like interception. It's more like not like, I admire the people who can strategize with all of these moving parts and like this is what will likely happen, this is what we should do in this situation, yada yada yada. Like the guys who are strategizing reactions or actions, I like that is admirable because of how many moving parts there are.
After Hamas launched its October 7th attacks, the dominoes, they started to fall. First, Israel started a relentless air campaign over Gaza, followed by a multi-phase ground assault that still continues to this day. The number of surviving Hamas members at this stage is a subject of debate, but it's undeniable that their military strength no longer poses an immediate threat to Israel directly. Then...
Yeah, but you still got dismantled. This is the problem. Like, Hamas is never an immediate threat until it is, right? It's like, they're gonna shoot like some rockets, whatever, that are like don't do anything aside from waste Israel's money to like buy the Patriot rockets to like counter the like the stupid missiles that would hit something, right? Other than that, though, Hamas never takes action until it does, and then it's a problem. And it's like you let it fester, you let it like dig itself into the population more, grow again, get supplies, get money, get funding, whatever, increase its force, and then you attack again. And again, call Bibi Benjamin Netanyahu, call him a war criminal, whatever. I think he's doing what's needed. I think he needs to put an end to this war. Someone will have to put an end to the war one way or another at some point, right? If the Iranian regime stays in power, if Hamas stays in power, if Hezbollah stays in power, right? And it's like, oh, ceasefire. It's like, well, Israel would still have to focus on all of its economy on defenses, knowing that ceasefire means we're not attacking yet until we break it when we are ready. That's all ceasefire means. Israel never really, aside from like maybe one time during this war, but Israel is not known to be the one actively going into the conflict, okay? The conflict is brought to Israel and they have to respond. Pretty much 95% of the time, as far as I know, Israel is responding and it's not the aggressor. And you can say, it's like, oh, well, what about the Nakba? What Nakba? Okay, you know what? I'll give it to you, even though I don't agree with you, I'll give it to you. Nakba was an aggressor move. Sure. Okay, that's 80 years ago. Fuck off, okay? They're no longer the aggressor, okay? They settled, whatever, and it's like, oh, well, it's not right. They should give the land back. Well, come and take it. And you want to come and take it means from now on, you're the aggressor and we are the defender because we have the castle, right? Like, think medieval times. If you have the castle, you are now defending the castle, okay? When you were attacking the castle, you were the aggressor. When you're defending the castle, you're the defender, okay? So, Israel took the castle, now it's defending it. I don't care who's right or wrong, right? I don't think it matters realistically who is right morally, who is wrong. It's all about force. Can Israel defend it? Yes. Can it prevent future attacks? If yes, they should do it. If they can't, they're gonna have to keep defending it until they run out of resources to defend it, and then they will basically eventually lose.
After almost a year...
A defensive battle, by the way, a battle of attrition, the defense usually loses unless it gets reinforcements. But defense in an attrition battle usually loses. Why? Because it is the one blocked off.
of low-grade fighting with Hezbollah to the north, Israel rapidly stepped up its operations.
Not blocked off, sorry. It's the one that has its actions blocked off, right? It can't just leave the castle and attack the troops, right? It's like, it's the one who will keep getting attacked because it cannot leave the castle to do stuff unless it gets reinforcements.
Thousands of explosives, rigged electronic devices, assassinating key figures and invading
Which, by the
southern
way,
Lebanon.
dude, this, by the way, this,
thousands of explosives.
bam! Fucking the most surgical strike in the history of surgical strikes. Nothing is more surgical than that. Israel was getting shit for this. Oh, civilians got hurt. Motherfucker, why is the Hamas terrorist walking amongst civilians then? Civilians got hurt. Like, fuck off.
Rigged electronic devices, assassinating key figures and invading southern Lebanon while dismantling much of Hezbollah's arsenal in the process. Then, in December of last year, the Assad regime in Syria collapsed.
Funny enough. Invaded southern Lebanon, Israel got shit for that. Bro, they went in, destroyed Hezbollah facilities, and left. And people who are like, oh, free Palestine, the retards, are like, oh, this is like, see, Israel just trying to create greater Israel. They took over Lebanon. It's like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
Phase of a lightning assault by domestic rebels who've since made it their mission to root out Hezbollah operatives and Iranian smuggling lines that operate at cross purposes with the new government. All right, now, before we go any further, we've really got to put in perspective just how important those changes were from both Israel and Iran's perspectives. Israel had long maintained that it would simply be too dangerous to launch a coordinated long-term air campaign against Iran by itself, declining to do so without American support for multiple decades, despite growing concerns over Iran's nuclear program. Hamas and Hezbollah would attack. Assad's airspace would pose problems at a minimum, and critical Israeli aerial refueling tankers wouldn't be able to fly safely unless Israel dominated the air corridor between itself and Iran. But now, with Hamas and Hezbollah so badly diminished and Assad gone, Israel didn't face nearly as big of a threat in attacking Iran.
Yeah, this is the perfect time. Yeah. When the other threats are contained, this is the perfect time to attack. They couldn't attack out of nowhere for no, not for no reason, but they couldn't attack out of nowhere, right? Keeping themselves at such a disadvantage on other fronts. But now where the other fronts are kind of the fuck are they gonna do right now? Right, this is the perfect time, and I believe they have a place to refuel right now, really close to Iran. If not, somebody said it's they're refueling in midair over Iran. I was like, I don't think we have the tech for that, do we? It's maybe. I didn't Google it. I can grok it, whatever. I don't care that much, but it's kind of funny.
Its chances were made all the better when Israel took advantage of the collapse of the Assad regime to destroy much of Syria's military equipment, including aircraft and air defense systems. And with the situation gradually shifting in Israel's favor, Jerusalem took it upon itself to mete out some proactive devastation. Some of that came against Iran directly, especially in October of 2024, when a massive Israeli air barrage crippled Iran's ability to produce new missiles and eviscerated its air defense systems. With those air defenses taken out, Israel put itself in a much better position to launch direct strikes on Iran later, especially because it targeted specific air defense systems that were meant to protect critical military and economic targets. But just as important as that October attack on Iran was Israel's decision to step up airstrikes against another Iranian proxy.
This guy must be really fun at dinner parties. I could probably just listen to him talk. I don't need to see his face. Just he has such a good voice. Holy fuck. Such a good voice.
This time, the Houthi rebels in the nation of Yemen. By this time, the Houthis had made a name for themselves on the global stage, using Iran-supplied drones and missiles to attack maritime trade vessels in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Those attacks started just after the October 7th attack in Israel, and since early 2024, the United States has led a coalition air campaign to protect naval shipping and diminish Houthi capabilities. But when newly inaugurated US President Donald Trump came into power, America's air campaign against the Houthis ramped up exponentially. And starting this past May, Israel did the same. Israeli aircraft devastated much of the Houthis' infrastructure, its weapons manufacturing facilities, and its launch capabilities in response to repeated Houthi attempts to strike Israel directly over the past year and a half.
From my understanding, the reason they attacked the Houthis wasn't even because of Israel. The reason US attacked the Houthis wasn't because of Israel, but because of the ships. Like, yeah, you have a war with Israel. That's cool. Don't touch our fucking shit, though. We have the superior might here, and you are not gonna touch our shit, okay? That, I believe, was why, or the pretense of why the US attacked the Houthis. I don't think it was necessarily because of the Israel thing, but we can view it in both ways and probably both have like some, it's like kind of like, win-win situation.
By mid-June, when the Israeli strikes on Iran began, the Houthis had been largely taken out of commission, at least in the short term. And all the while, Israel and its allies kept up the pressure on other Iranian proxy groups. Of course, Israel's operations in Gaza have only continued, with Jerusalem now openly admitting that it intends for the vast majority of the Gaza Strip to never be resettled by Gazans themselves. In Syria, Israel still launches intermittent airstrikes, sometimes directly.
Okay, first of all, there wasn't the official statement from Benjamin Netanyahu, as far as I know. It was the statement from like the center, like the treasury guy, whatever. And again, honestly, is it right? Probably not. Is it the best thing for Israel? Probably yes. Can Israel do it? If they want to, who's gonna stop them? Right? However, if you want to play politics and what is the moral good in this situation, you should let them resettle. However, in order to secure that border for Israel, you would need to re-educate the population with other allied Arab nations to volunteer teachers and all that stuff to re-educate the next generations, at least 3 to 4 generations. And by generation, I mean like 20 years, right? So 4 generations mean for the next 80 years, there should be, how do you call them when you like go volunteer at like some, another country, a mission, right? There should be like 80 years up to 100 years worth of missions of re-educating the population until they do not have radical ideologies, while also, okay, giving them something to lose in the sense of if they're prosperous, they're living pretty comfortably and happily, they would not want to lose it, right? They need to make their comfort of living so much better than the radical ideology. Okay, a lot of times people choose violence, drugs, violence, crime, all that stuff because they are at the point where it's like, well, if I use violence, it's like it's a risk reward for people, right? So it's like I'm gonna choose violence, I'm gonna choose a crime. Even if I get caught and sent to jail, my life won't be much worse than it is now. But if I don't get caught and not sent to jail, I just made a massive profit and my life gets noticeably better, right? If people are living happy and they have more to lose, they have families, kids, whatever, and they actually care about them, they have something to live for, they probably wouldn't want to sacrifice themselves. It's when people don't, that's when you have problems.
Related to its occupation of a band of territory in the country's south, but sometimes against targets alleged to be Hezbollah or otherwise accused of arming themselves in a way that Israel finds dangerous. And speaking of Hezbollah, Israel has continued to carry out airstrikes across Lebanon, hitting the suburbs of Beirut as recently as just
a really good beard, by the way. That is a really well taken care of beard, by the way.
1 week before the new undeclared war against Iran kicked off in mid-June. Israel has alleged that its strikes are intended to prevent Hezbollah from reconstituting, taking out its new senior leadership and destroying its capacity to build kamikaze drones. All right, so let's fast forward to the current conflict between Israel and Iran, starting on June the 13th, 2025, and at least one reason why Iran's proxy networks have waited to attack should be pretty obvious. That, of course, would be that they just can't. Hamas has practically zero ability to threaten targets outside of Gaza. Hezbollah has been ripped.
Yeah, they're all MO, and always has been, is to bring the fight into Gaza, because, again, it's an asymmetrical warfare. If they fight in Israel, they lose. They're in the open. Israel will just fucking annihilate them. If they're inside Gaza, Israel will have to look really bad while they're annihilating them. Either way, like, Hamas will lose. The problem is, like, how bad does Israel look while while making Hamas lose. Right.
To shreds, Assad is gone, and the Houthis have been largely neutered in their ability to hit targets past the Red Sea. Iran's entire plan
They're
to
out of ammo.
deter Israeli military action by building up a network of proxy forces was predicated
By
on
the
the
way,
assumption that
once Iran is taken care of, I am 99% sure Lebanon will have, and also like how should you call it, like a regime change. Syria would have a regime change, not like regime change, but it's like the terrorist part. Like there, you get the fuck out. Okay. And I think Yemen would be last on that list, but Yemen would still suffer the wrath because it's like they did attack Israel, and Israel did fight them back against them, but on to like to stop them from attacking, they didn't do anything realistically to the Houthis, like in terms of damages, aside from like reduce their capabilities. So I'm pretty sure like once Iran is taken care of, if it's going to get taken care of, probably Lebanon, then Syria would be next. Lebanon first. Lebanon is an easier target than Syria.
those proxies would be available to retaliate against Israel if Israel directly attacked Iran. But what Iran either did not account for or simply couldn't
Well,
stop.
Actually, let me see. Map of Middle East. Yeah, Lebanon's definitely. Yeah, Lebanon's an easier target. Yeah, that's. For some reason, I thought they were flipped. That's why I was like, wait, am I saying it right? Yeah, Lebanon, and then you would have, they'll go into Syria, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan would help out to an extent because they have a bit of history. But yeah, who else do we have here? Turkey's not gonna do shit. Yeah. Also, like, let's be real. What do you call it? Saudi might participate to an extent, right? Saudi, UAE, they also not hate, but like they have a problem with these guys, right? If these guys are gotten rid of, you know, like they might, because it's like they wouldn't want the regime to come back, right? They want, like, if Iran is gone, they want it gone, like the regime of Iran, right? If that is gone, they want gone, and they might to some extent, not necessarily militarily, but they might to some extent help get rid of these, right? Everybody wants this to be like over and done with, right? No one really cares about Syria and Lebanon. They're too weak, and their focus is Israel, so no one really cares. But at the same time, they could probably be convinced, or trade deals might happen that would just help Israel. I'm not saying they have to directly get involved, but they might get involved in like some way or another. And then also, I'm pretty sure Saudi is, the eyes are on Yemen. Saudi wants to get rid of like the Yemen bullshit, right? Like they hate the Houthis. They basically bought the Yemeni government, right? Like there's so much shit there.
Was that Israel would be able to target and dismantle Iran's proxies so quickly and in such rapid succession. But by itself,
quickly, fucking precisely, right? No one thought, like, dude, like fucking, they were dropping like flies. The leadership, holy man, the leadership of Hamas and of Hezbollah, they were like fucking dropping, right? Now, here's the scariest part. You know how I said like about my comment about like if you have like things to lose, you have economy, yada yada yada, right? There is like, I think there's a top limit to it. So for example, if you look at like the leaders of Hamas, they were billionaires, right? The three leaders, for whatever their names were, I think all three of them are dead, if not two. They were wealthy beyond belief, right? The problem is, I think, is that they were just living in a very luxurious jail because they knew if they leave, they're dead. So, yeah, even though they were very comfortable and stuff, it's not like they could really like do anything. They couldn't like travel the world or anything like that, right? So in that case, I think, like, yeah, you live comfortably, but like at some point, they would need to do something. Or on the other hand, they were getting bored from the comfort and they needed action, right? But like, I'm trying to rationalize from like a retard's mind how you get from a point of like you're a billionaire instead of just like like washing your hands clean. You know what? Fuck it, we're done. Whatever. Like we're good. We don't need to fight anymore. You still persist on this religious war. Like I just don't honestly. I just don't understand zealotry. Like that is the thing. I don't understand zealotry. I understand it as a concept. I don't understand how you get there, aside from like owing your life to it. So, for example, like I know you're like a beggar, like you have no fucking money, whatever, right? And then it's like some religious guy picks you up and saves you, and like you feel like this is right, this is true, because from my subjective reality this saved my life and my life is so much better. I will do everything I can to support that. I understand that one, fine. I can understand why you're a zealot. Other than that scenario, I just can't relate. It's so weird to me.
The diminished status of Iran's proxy forces can't explain the full story. After all, if these groups really are so committed to Iran's cause, then they'll launch what they have, even if they don't have much. And in truth, that's already happened, at least to some extent. Since June the 13th, the Houthi rebels have targeted Israel with several ballistic missiles, although those missiles were either destroyed by Israel's air defenses or were allowed to make impact in open areas where nobody was around.
Yeah, the only thing I think that the Houthis managed to do was the drone attack. I think that was the only thing.
Risk. In fact, the Houthis have vowed to intervene more broadly in support of Iran, although, at least for now, it's unclear that they have any real ability to do so. Other groups, however, have chosen to simply stand aside. For instance, Lebanese leaders have been imploring Hezbollah to stay out of the crisis, and at least until now, Hezbollah has chosen to remain on the sidelines. The group actually has issued statements condemning Israel's attacks against Iran, but it hasn't made any mention of conducting a response of its own. Similarly, one of Iran's largest proxy militias in Iraq, known as Kataib Hezbollah, has declined to make any movements against Israel. Both groups, as well as Hamas, have threatened that they could retaliate against the United States if it gets involved, which America hasn't done at the time of writing. That's something's going to change by the time you see this video, though. I just looked at the news. But for now, neither they nor Iran.
As far as I know, nothing really changed. US talks big. I talked about this in my previous video when talking about the Dave Smith thing. I think the smart move of the US is let Israel tax its own resources as much as it can, and then have the US come help out on with the least amount of expenses needed, the least amount of resources needed to secure the victory. It would take some spoils, probably a good chunk of spoils. It would lose no resources. Israel overall would be weaker because it used up more resources. Therefore, Israel would be at a worse negotiating position with the US for future deals for the foreseeable, for at least probably like 10 years. US would have advantage in negotiations because Israel would need the US that much more because of how many resources Israel would lose. Right? So in any negotiating deal for the next at least 10 years, US has the advantage, right? Which is, by the way, you're America first. I think that is literally what, like, if you want benefit America, you have to take advantage of your allies' wars. Don't let any good crisis go to waste, you know?
Iran's other proxy militias in Syria or Iraq have stepped up. Even the new Syrian government, which now doesn't support Iran but is dealing with Israeli occupation on its own soil, has refused to go so far as even verbally condemning Israel's actions. Instead, Israel has been using Syria's airspace for free to launch its strikes, giving a clear indication of just how reticent armed actors have become in opposing Israel when they know they might end up in the crosshairs.
This is what I said before, where it's like at some point you're like, you have to have like the people on the inside be like, just join the winning side, like, you know, save their own skins and shit like that. Because it's like, this is a losing battle, we're fucked. Like, yeah, we tried the missiles, we tried Iran is fucking done. Iranian leaders are in fucking like, well, they're dead and in bunkers, whichever one or the other, right? Everyone who's taking a position, the next day they die, right? So it's like, and also, let's be real, it could also be, even though they were a proxy or are a proxy, it could also be that it's like, you know how like a subordinate hates his master, but he doesn't have a choice? This could also be the case, right? They might have been like, we don't like being under Iranian control. We hate we hate Israel, sure, right? But we don't like that Iran is dictating how we go about it, right? That could also be the case, and why they're like, you know what, fuck Iran, like just get over with, right? Could be, or they're just picking the winning side and be like, okay, you know what, like this was our last hurrah, and we're fucked. Time to like, you know, face the music.
Right now, the ongoing devastation of Iran's ruling regime is quite clearly a defeat in progress. Iran might still have some tricks up its sleeve, but regardless, the country has...
If Iran has like a hidden nuke, we're fucked. Everybody's fucked. If Iran has a hidden nuke. Well, the Americas are probably okay, but like, yeah, Middle East and part of Europe and Africa, probably fucked.
Now suffered a degree of losses that can never be taken back, and it appears entirely unlikely to be able to match, with its own military strikes, Israel. But the collapse of Iran's proxy networks, known collectively as the Axis of Resistance, represents an even greater strategic failure for Tehran and the Ayatollah. For decades, every action that Iran has taken to oppose or undermine Israel has rested on a single predicate: that the threat presented by the Axis of Resistance was too great for Israel to launch direct, large-scale military action. For Iran, the question wasn't whether Israel or Iran would win in a head-to-head contest, but whether Israel would judge the costs of a military offensive inflicted by both Iran.
Yeah, it's kind of like you already got us into this, right? Imagine you have an army, right? And it's like, let's use paint. Right? Let's say you have, this is your army, right? Like this is your army, and then you have like an enemy here, literally. You have an enemy here, you have an enemy here, you have the enemy here, and then you have the enemy here, right? Now you have to, if you're the one attacking, let's say this is Israel, right? And Israel's the one attacking, right? Now it has divulged forces here, right? Forces here, and then forces here. And this would, like, let's say, this chunk is gone because of it. Like, I'm talking about like resources, obviously, not like chunk is in like the territory. And then like this is probably a bigger chunk, and then this is a bigger chunk, and like this is a problem, right? But because they were so unorganized in their attacks, what happened was because these guys went in, right? All of this, right? Like all of this was directed at it, right? Now these guys came in, and it's like, because they're coming into Israel territory, and like Israel doesn't have to go out of their way. Okay, all right, okay, we're gonna turn back to here. It's like, oh, you guys, oh, okay, we're gonna turn back to here. It's like, oh well, now we got rid of these fuckers. Done, or like enough, that it's like they're no longer a threat. But we still kept, like, let's say they lost, they lost a bit of this. All right, let's say Israel lost these resources, but now, because you were playing defensive, these guys lost a lot more resources playing offensive. You played defensive, you lost less resources, because again, defense loses in battles of attrition. It usually wins in the short battles, right? And now, because you have all these resources, you can go ahead and fuck these guys up. Okay? I haven't used paint in a while. I wanna get the pen that I can draw. Like, that would be sick. But like, so yeah.
And the Axis of Resistance.
If you ever played StarCraft, best strategy is either you rush before the defenses are up, or you build defenses, let your opponent waste some money, and then you attack them, right? Like, you retaliate after an attack. You counter the attack, right? Because when you play defensive, it's easier for you to like use less units because usually there's certain structures. There's a way to like block the enemy from going in like smaller chunks, so it's easier to like like you can see like play StarCraft 2. One what do you call it? One not Dragoon. What are they called? The Protoss unit that shoots. One of those and a battery can take on 3 or 4 Dragoons, right? And by the time, well, not 4, but like 3, I believe you can take down, right? And by the time that they're attacking, you are building more, and then you can go and counter. Meanwhile, you wasted, the cost of a 1 Dragoon and like the 100 crystals for the battery. This guy not only spent the money for 3 Dragoons, it also lost them, so it's a wasted money, and it did no damage. Anyways.
Outweigh the potential benefits for Jerusalem. But after the October 7th attack by Hamas, Israel has engaged in a campaign to systematically dismantle each of Iran's proxies, some of which have been wiped out more thoroughly than others, but none of which currently retain the ability to strike Israel at scale. The axis of resistance is not destroyed, at least not yet, but it's been taken so far out of fighting form that it no longer poses a threat. And month by month, operation by operation, Israel has shown Iran that its grand efforts across the Middle East were a waste of time. In the case of Hamas, the broader twists and turns of Middle Eastern diplomacy were
I still think that if Hamas didn't attack October 7th, and given somehow the intelligence would not get to Israel, and they all attacked together, like the 100 to 150,000 rockets by Hezbollah, the invasion from Gaza by Hamas, and the maneuvering rockets and all that other shit from Iran, I think Israel would take a lot of fucking damage, but I highly doubt even all of that, if it happened all at once, would have been anywhere near enough to like do what do you call it, like damage that like handicaps you completely, right? And again, if they would have used all of their ammo, they would also be, and like, when you aim for the king, make sure you don't miss, right? And I think even if they aimed for the king with all of that at the same time simultaneously, I'm pretty sure they would still miss.
Were a waste of time. In the case of Hamas, the broader twists and turns of Middle Eastern diplomacy were able to force a rushed attack without Iran's direct support, devastating and tragic for Israel, but ultimately something that Jerusalem could endure. After the initial assault, Israel proved that it was willing to invade Gaza outright, dismantle Hamas, and devastate the Gaza Strip in the process, crossing several lines that Iran seemed to believe it wouldn't. When it was time to deal with Hezbollah,
now here's the thing: if you had pretty much any other prime minister than Benjamin Netanyahu, you would not have this, like, Israel would not go this far into Gaza to devastate Hamas. They would likely do the same thing they did every time, which I fucking hated, is they would just, they retaliate, they would do a ceasefire, and then you just wait for the next attack. And it would always be in the background, and trust would never be built. And every time you see somebody who's not like an Israeli Arab, anyone, like, even Israeli Arabs, you would be suspicious, right? This is not a healthy relationship with the other local population. Every time somebody speaks Arabic, you're like, like it would happen. Why? Because it's still there. And this would be the case for probably 2 more generations after, let's say, Israel demolishes Iran, demolishes the Hezbollah, Hamas. They no longer exist for 1 or 2 generations, likely 2, might be 1. Every time you're gonna hear people speak Arabic in a very populated public place, you would keep your guard up, right? This is not going away until like there's a generation that is born not knowing this conflict. Like, thought about it, sure, but knowing it, no. Okay? Like, this is not a healthy thing for the citizens of either one, okay? You want to be able to just, like, travel, not freely, but like within a passport, go see Gaza, go see Egypt, go see Jordan. Like, you're living in this territory. Why can't we just go visit, see how they live, and just have, like, see like what kind of entertainments they have, enjoy each other's cultures. You can't have that because you in the back of your head, you can't have that while in the back of your head you are worried of pretty much anyone who speaks Arabic, because you know that these guys, Hezbollah, Hamas, exist, right? And of course, yeah, there's the like fucking West Bank stuff. I get it, sure, whatever. I have mixed feelings about it. I think it's happening probably due to what I just described. This feeling in the back of your head that like there are terrorists there.
Iran directly, Israel demonstrated the incredible depth of penetration that its foreign intelligence
I'm not
service...
talking about the settlers. I'm talking about like the Israel checkpoints there and all that stuff. That's what I mean. The settlers, in my opinion, complete fucking nonsense, should not be happening. The settlers should not be there. Okay? But the Israeli forces on the ground should be there because of what I just said.
Mossad had achieved. For Hezbollah, that demonstration came by way of explosive pagers and handheld radios. In Iran, it came by way of smuggled explosive drones, targeted assassinations on the ground, and a large-scale sabotage campaign, all while relaying detailed intelligence about the movements of Iran's leaders. When it came to the Houthis, Israel proved itself willing to go to far greater lengths than the US-led coalition in destroying the group's attack capabilities. And when it came to Syria, Israel bided its time, let the rebel coalition do its work, and then destroyed Syria's military hardware so thoroughly that Damascus couldn't stop Israeli flyovers, even if it wanted to. For Iran and its proxy network, the result is a practically total defeat. Incredible sums of money have been thrown away to armed groups that couldn't hold their own when they could have been spent building up Iran's home defenses. High volumes of missiles and drones have been shipped all across the region, only for most of them to be...
Now, you might also wonder... Now, technically, Jordan and Israel, I wouldn't say they're like friends, but they're like on, somewhat decent terms. And you'll be like, well, why can't they fly to Iran from like here, right? And it's like, well, of course we have Iraq. But I don't think Jordan wants to get involved with this, right? I wonder if they're flying over Syria, are they also then flying over Turkey or Iraq? I'm assuming Turkey, right? So Turkey also gave them the okay. Which, by the way, there's a good chunk of Turks in Israel. I don't. What is the relationship between Turkey and Israel? I'm not even sure, honestly. It was never really a thing. Like, it was never like something that you even think about. I don't remember talking about Turkey at all during like growing up. Right? It was mostly these two. Sometimes Egypt, sometimes Jordan. We didn't even talk about Iran. Realistically, I think the whole like idea of proxies for children was just like not like not a thing. I had no idea, by the way. I'm from Ukraine, right? I had no idea how close I lived to Israel when I was in Ukraine. Because I lived like an hour away from the Black Sea. Wow. It was somewhere here. So I probably we went to like this part of the Black Sea. But this is like so close. Holy fuck. And we took a plane. I don't think we took a plane from Ukraine. We like traveled by train somewhere and then took a plane. I don't know where we took a plane from. Probably Ukraine though. Yeah, wow, that is actually like at zero distance. Holy fuck. Geography is not my thing. I knew like the Middle East is somewhere near Europe, but I didn't remember exactly where. I thought for some reason it was like more on the the west side of Europe for some reason. Obviously, it's called Middle East, sure. But like, yeah, wow, holy fuck, man. That is so close. Dang. The US has to travel quite a lot to get there. Oh my god, look, it spins! It spins! What the hell? Where's the end of the world? But you can't go up for some reason. Antarctica. Where's the North Pole? How do you not have the North Pole? Or am I crazy? Well, this should be it, right? So this used to be a cross. Oh my god. Anyways, fucking...
Be destroyed before they could launch. The work of Iran's military advisors, its logistical units, and its propagandists have come to nothing. And now Iran itself is practically helpless to defend against the same Israeli military that has knocked down its allies.
Iran's Khamenei says protesters' actions are treasonous, whatever. Get the fuck out of here.
Itself is practically helpless to defend against the same Israeli military that has knocked down its allies.
Wait, did I close Grok? I hope I didn't close Grok. Did I? I did. Okay. Yo, Grok. What was the... No, not this. What was the protests in 2011 Iran called? I think it was 2011, right? Green protests or something? Referred to as the Iranian protests or the Iranian Green Movement. Yeah, Green Movement. Yeah. How many civilian protester? I don't know, how many civilians died during the Green Movement protests? Obama's biggest failure that he didn't take advantage of these protests. During 72. The lack of transparency, government censorship, and suppression of information makes precise numbers difficult to confirm. Estimates range from the official figure of 36 to potentially over 100 civilian deaths. It's actually just less than I thought. I guess like as soon as like people started dying, they just gave up.
Helpless to defend against the same Israeli military that has knocked down its allies, one after the next after the next. Israel's military victories in this conflict will be studied for a generation, but perhaps just as worthy of study is the resounding failure of Iran's long-term strategy. While it lasted, it was a hell of a gamble, using an approach that no other nation has relied on to any level anywhere near what Iran chose to do. But now that the axis of resistance has collapsed, it's entirely clear in hindsight. That strategy was not enough to save Iran, and ultimately, it led to Iran's undoing. And that's where we end today's episode. I'd like to give a big shout out.
Now, we don't know if this is Iran's undoing, but sure seems that way, and hopefully it is. As soon as Iran is gone, I think that area of the world would just be in taking bigger strides toward just like peace in the Middle East. We need peace in the Middle East. Stop this holy war.